Welcome to Podnutz Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 169. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. It's our live call-in show for computer repair techs. The call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. The Computer Repair Podcast is brought to you by Pulse Printing and Promotions. Get help with all your print and promotional needs. Go to pulseprintpromo.com. Use the offer code PODNUTS for a 5% discount on every order. Let me introduce the co-host. We have Chris Carruthers from the Remote Support Tech Team on his phone. How you doing, Chris?
I can hear you loud and clear, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Good to hear you and see you. And also joining us, we have none other than the man in the van himself, Marvin Bee from MB Systems. How you doing, Marvin?
I'm doing fantastic.
Excellent. And also joining us today, we have Ernest Garner from NLU Computers. How you doing, Ernest?
Doing good.
Good. Good to have you with all your monitors and display goodness that you have in the background.
Sure.
You make it look like you're a professional. That's good.
Yeah, it's all an act.
All right, Chris, why don't you go ahead and start off this week and share one tip or story that we could use or learn from in your business.
Well, if I'm going to choose any story from this week, it has to be the I have crypto locker, what can you possibly do? I had to talk somebody down from spending the $500 or whatever dollars it was that they were being asked for in Walgreens cards because they have a backup. And I could not convince them for the first 20 minutes that I was on the phone that no, really, you actually have a backup. I promise you, all of your data is fine. We can get all of this restored. Calm down. So, big tip that I'm going to have, if you have a newsletter base, maybe you should start reminding some of your backup clients that they have a backup, because apparently some of mine have forgotten.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good tip and story. All rolled into one. All right, Mr. Marvin, why don't you share a tip or story with us this week?
Well, I'm going to talk about a piece of software that I got asked about in this past week. Somebody sent me an email about a program called Total Network Inventory that was referenced a while back. And the program is called Total Network Inventory from a company called Soft Inventive. And it's software that I use, especially when I show up to a customer for the first time. I can just simply put this software on their server or a admin station, and I can scan the entire network and get a inventory of hardware and software of that network. So I get an idea of how many, XP stations there are, Windows 7, what types of hardware they're running, the models of computers, etc. Really works out great for larger networks. So that program I get, and I actually purchased the MSP license so that I could use it for any customer I want at any time without limitation. Now you're supposed to purchase, for a particular location and a particular number of nodes that you're going to scan. So if you've got a network where you've got just, less than 25 stations or whatever, you just buy the license for 25, and the licenses go up to 2,000 is what they list on the site, and then if you need above that, you have to call them and get special pricing. But I use the MSP license, and that way I can use it at all of my clients at any time. And one of the things that I like about it is that I can print out reports for the customers, and one of the recent ones I did is I got a customer that still had about 20 XP computers on their network, and we needed to identify which computers they were and who was using them and stuff like that, so they could determine which ones would get the newer computers faster. And since it was a law firm, attorneys got the computers first. So I was able to print out a report for them on a regular basis, and that. And the other thing I like is that it will keep a log of the inventory. So if you need to go back and look at changes that have happened, say you do a scan once a week or once a month, and you want to see what new software has been installed, this will scan the computers and give you a list of what software has changed, been added, been removed. If you've got somebody that's trying to do something on the down low, you can go back and say, oh, I saw you installed that scanning program and took it off your computer. Nice try. So that is the program. And did I put a link in the chat for everybody? Yes, I did. That's it.
Very good. All right, and Ernest, what's one tip or story that you could share with us that would help somebody out?
Okay, so it's really, really cold here all the time. Pretty much, at least, 7 months a year. So I've got a local zoo that wanted to be able to monitor all their habitats and keep track of the temperatures, be able to log them, and then get alerts if a temperature drops, say, below 40 degrees. And I could not find any commercial kind of thing that for a reasonable price that would do what they wanted. So what I ended up doing is I ended up taking something called a ConnectSense Wi-Fi temperature sensor, and I put Wi-Fi throughout the whole zoo, and ended up putting a bunch of these sensors around, and they were real bugger to get to work right, but once I got them working right, it's really slick, and I was able to basically build a solution for something that didn't kind of exist, by taking something and using it for what it was not intended to. I took something that was meant for monitoring the temperature in your basement, basically, and made it so it'll monitor the temperature in all these different zoo habitats. So
nice. So if the temperature ever is off, then they'll at least know so they can.
Right. I've actually got it set up so if temperature drops, it'll text one of the zookeepers and let them know that the heater's obviously not working in whatever habitat.
Okay.
So being able to take things that are and use them for what they're not intended for.
That's good. That's a great tip. Yeah. I'm sure and that's what we all should be doing is thinking outside the box. So that's a great tip there.
Yeah.
All right, very cool. All right, my tip today is about OpenDNS, which I have on. I use it through my router in my home office, and basically I had forgotten. Now Comcast does not switch their external IP addresses all the time. My other company I was with, they actually switched it about once a month, so I knew to update it through the OpenDNS. If you're using OpenDNS free, then a lot of times what will happen is once the IP address changes, if you have any type of web filtering using OpenDNS, it won't be there. And so you have to repoint it to the new external address. Well, something I should have done a long time ago and I just never did is I basically got they have a little piece of software that you can download, and it will change the IP address as it changes for you through OpenDNS, so you always have that web filtering turned on. And I totally forgotten about it, and I was wondering why certain things were open that shouldn't have been. Because I do kind of check my network every once in a while, make sure that everything is working correctly. So, definitely check that if you're using OpenDNS. You got to point it to the right external IP. All right, let's move into some emails. And just so everybody knows, I don't think the feed is working for some reason. I have no idea why. Because I tested it 5 days ago, and I embedded it in the website, and it worked perfectly fine with just me, myself, and I. I really don't know. Either this is a big Google issue, or we're doing something wrong on the channel or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was trying to work that out. Jeff, at some point, can you whisper me the YouTube direct link into IRC so I can take a look at it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah, I'll do that in just a minute. So, because that's what I actually use. I use a direct link to embed it in the web page, and that wasn't a problem. All right. So, anyways, we'll continue to work on that, and hopefully we'll get this live show back up and running. There's other solutions out there, but they tend to cost lots of money in order to do what we're doing. So anyways, let's go back to our emails. This one is from Jose Fidel. It says, bleeping computers is a great asset to myself and fellow computer techs around the world. Their freedom of speech is being violated because of a bad review. If you could bring this issue to fellow techs, it would protect all of our freedom of speech, including Podnutz. Thanks in advance. And we brought this up to you last week, and I encourage everybody, we'll have the links in the show notes again. Go to bleepingcomputer.com, check out the lawsuit, and all the things that are happening over there. If you have money and you want to support them, but let everybody know what's going on, because basically we're not able to talk about the things that we want to talk about freely, and that's what we should be able to do, because if I have an opinion about a piece of software or a piece of equipment, I should be able to talk about that on shows like this. So anyways, go check that out. All right, email number 2, Error 53. I thought you would be interested in this article, and this is from Sybil Haynes. It says, Error 53, Fury mounts as Apple software updates threatens to kill your iPhone 6. Has anybody come across this? I don't think it... Ernest, do you work on iPhones at all?
I do, but I haven't seen this.
Okay. And it's basically where you basically are replacing the Touch ID, which apparently I don't know if you have to replace that every time you replace a broken screen or if they all come as one assembly. I'm not really sure. But apparently when you switch the Touch ID, it's bricking a lot of phones, or it makes it where the Touch ID no longer works, is my understanding. So I will definitely put a link to that in the show notes. You guys can go check it out and see what's going on there. It's one of those things where I think they'll probably fix the problem to a certain extent, but the reality is it's just like anytime you use a skimmer for collecting credit card information off of a gas pump or an ATM or something like that. That stuff happens all the time. So if you think about it, if you're switching the Touch ID, there's probably a way where you can basically collect that information if it was a Touch ID that was messed with somebody, somebody was smart enough to do it. So that's what Apple's trying to protect against. But at the same point, we need to be able to fix these devices because they're $700+ devices and they need to be replaced or fixed, not replaced, for another $700+. It's kind of a little ridiculous. So
basically, what they're saying is the home button basically is linked to the motherboard.
Correct.
That's basically what they're saying.
And they know when it's been changed. So if it's not the one that originally came with the unit, so yeah.
I can see what they were trying to do with it. I mean, they were trying to make things more secure, and you couldn't just replace the thing with one that wasn't supposed to go with the phone, so that you could bypass it if someone stole your phone. So I get what Apple was going with. I don't think that a $5 million lawsuit is really in order here, but that's just my opinion. I think it just makes it harder because if Apple made legitimate parts available to legitimate repair shops, then we wouldn't have this problem because the repair shops that are repairing Apple phones completely above board but can't buy Apple parts right from Apple because they just don't accept new partners for that anymore. Then people wouldn't have bricked phones when they go to legitimate repair shops.
Well, and that's only part of the issue. If you think about where are the Apple stores, most people are going to have to travel 2+ hours to get to an Apple store to get this thing fixed, right? Where they might have a tech or a repair shop just down the street from them that they can actually use. So it's kind of a ridiculous thing that that's your solution. You're going to make people travel a few hours to come and get their phone fixed. It's not right. All right.
It's kind of the way it is with anything Apple, though. It's never easy to work on.
No. Well, and it really, they're not real difficult to work on because the components are pretty simple, but as far as getting the parts, that's the hardest part. You really can't get parts directly from Apple. You're going to get it from probably the same manufacturer that makes their parts, but they got to kind of stamp them as a third-party approved or whatever. So, yeah, there's going to be differences there too, and I'm sure that Apple has their licensing and all that kind of stuff. All right, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, if they hadn't taken away the ability for new partners to pick up a license to be authorized Apple repair shops, then this wouldn't be an issue. Now there was a place that opened up in the mall here. There's no Apple stores around here. A place opened up in the mall called Jump Plus, and I find out that the reason why they put this in the mall is because Jump Plus, back in the day, got themselves the Apple authorized repair moniker, and they franchise. So any new franchises that open are grandfathered into it. So there's companies that are taking advantage of it, but if they just opened it up, then it wouldn't be a problem.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Okay. Hey Chris, I can't get that in the. I don't have the page open. I can't get it into the other computer to get you that link. So I put it in this chat, but I just realized you're on your phone and you probably can't check it.
No, I can. I'll just leave the video for a second.
Okay. All right, let's move on to another email. This is from Joe Mezzanini. Microsoft releases more free books. It says Microsoft has continued to expand the MVA, or the Microsoft Virtual Academy, with the recent addition of some new books. These are the full-length books published by Microsoft Press on serious IT subjects such as SQL Server, Cloud, Azure, Windows 10, and much more. They're all downloadable for a free PDF format or even in Mobi format so that you can read them from your Kindle, or in the Kindle app if you have a device for which one is available. All right, so I will put that. Thank you, Joe, for that. I will put that in the show notes. You guys can come check that out. It's always good to have free tech books that you can actually learn something from. And I think the best place a lot of times to learn stuff for Microsoft products is going to be from Microsoft themselves. So definitely check that out. All right, and the last email for the day. This is from Paco LeBron. He says, "Hi Jeff, currently having an issue with my Google Cloud Print working with my Dymo printer. I've gone through the regular troubleshooting steps of removing the devices and re-adding it along with resetting all PC and network devices to no avail. Is there a suggestion you can make that may help with this? Thanks, Paco LeBron." And this is kind of a joke because Paco was asking me about this one day, and I kind of made the comment. I said, well, did you try uninstalling it and installing it again? Not realizing that it actually is, when you go to set up CloudPrint, you can do it through your Google account, but there is also a piece of connector software. And I'll put the link for both of those in the show notes, where you can install a connector so that you can use any device for your Google Cloud Print, whether it be through your printer or your Dymo label maker or whatever it is. So definitely check that out. And yeah, if you need to use Google Cloud Print because you need to print your receipts or Dymo labels, there you go. All right. All right, let's take a quick break. Our show today brought to you by Pulse Printing and Promotions. Get help with all your print and promotional needs. Business cards, postcards, stickers, mouse pads, fridge and car magnets, shirts, pens, and so much more. You can see some of the most popular items online, and new items are being added all the time. If you need something that is not listed, just ask. Make sure you use a promo code Podnutz for 5% off every order. It never expires. You can also sign up for their newsletter to receive monthly specials. And if you sign up for the newsletter right now, you'll be entered to win 500 business cards. We basically have another week going on this competition. It's a 4-week competition that we're using, so definitely check that out. And Darren over at Pulse Printing and Promotions, he designed my new business cards for my business and printed them for me, and they work great. So definitely high-quality cards. Definitely check them out. Was really impressed with not only his design ability, but also his ability to basically print the cards and get them to me in a good amount of time. All right, go to pulseprintpromo.com and use the offer code Podnutz. All right. Today, Aaron Michael actually sent me an email and was talking about some of these things where basically we've got, here's how it goes. Ideas or processes around how to pitch and close product, services, and upsells. And I guess kind of what I mean by that is, Chris, a lot of people have always heard you talking about taking a customer and upselling them from just a regular virus removal to a managed type service for residentials. And so if you could kind of talk about that, and we'll kind of go into a discussion about some of the things that maybe we need to do to basically make this upsell that makes sense for our customer and actually can put more money in our pocket. Oh, Chris, are you still there? Can we hear you now? Nope. Hold on. Here you go. Go ahead.
So it wasn't me this time.
No, it wasn't you.
Okay, all right.
You're good.
Yeah, I mean, there's the problem is that whenever I wind up talking about sales and whenever I get into these, you wind up hearing buzzwords coming up, right? Like, find the customer's button, and you have to. Everybody has a hot switch, but really what it comes down to with upselling a client is you have to think that the client is already bringing their system to you for a reason, right? And so using this example, they're bringing it to you for virus removal. They know they have an infection, they know their antivirus didn't work, and they know they're going to have to pay for this job, right? So, I mean, on average, most of the pricing that I see is around, 109 to 129 for virus removal. So, when you're talking to a customer, you're saying, hey, listen, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get everything cleaned up and very clearly insert company name here.
Hey, Chris.
I don't want to get sued.
Chris, we can barely hear you.
Oh, my God.
I don't know what's going on with your signal there, but we can barely hear what you're saying.
I don't know what you did.
Nothing. I boosted you up as much as I could, so something changed in the signal there.
All right.
That sounds better. That sounds better.
Good. Okay.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
So, what I was saying is that, the customer's already coming to you. They know they have a virus. They know that their antivirus didn't work, which clearly I'm not going to say the name of at this point because we don't want to get sued. And, it's not an unknown for them anymore, right? Like when you try to sell somebody a backup that's never lost a picture, if they're a residential client, it's really hard to convince them if something happens and grandma's pictures are gone, we can't do anything about it, right?
Right.
But if they've already experienced that loss, that upsell is very difficult for a residential customer because they don't see the value in it. What you need to do as the business owner, and really as the salesperson, because you need to be both, is to sit down with the customer and say, listen, this is what happened to your computer, and I want to help you prevent this from happening again. Or at the very least, I want to make it easier for us to fix it next time. So yeah, you could spend the $110 now, or the $130 now, or however much it is that you charge for your virus removal. Or you could spend $150 or $250 for 6 months or 1 year. We'll clean it this time. We'll put our software on there because clearly the software that you have now didn't work. And if it happens again, we can remote into your computer and clean it. You don't even have to bring it in.
Right.
Right. So now you're telling your customer all this time that you've just spent bringing the computer to me, all the time.
Oh, and we lost Chris. Yep. This is why I say Wi-Fi never works 100% of the time. It just doesn't. So, anyways, Ernest, do you find for your customers that you're actually doing a lot of upsells and different things to help your customers out in their needs every day?
I do. If somebody's coming in, like you said, if somebody's coming in for virus removal, I'll usually kind of just throw in there at some point, what are you doing for a backup, or, what are you using for antivirus? Just, and if they say, well, all I ever do is Facebook and I don't have anything on there that I care about, then I'll usually drop it at that. But I'll usually kind of throw in there at some point, you should, get some sort of live backup kind of thing. And that's about the extent of my upselling.
Right. Okay. Well, so backup's definitely something that's needed. Chris, you're back with us.
Yeah, sorry. The big point, you can probably hear me better. I see more volume. The big point that I wind up really hammering home for those customers, and what normally makes the sale, is we are going to save you all of this time and hassle, because if you're on this plan, you just let us know and we fix it. And that's it. So, the half hour to an hour that they spent getting you connected or bringing it in and getting all of that set up is only something they're ever going to have to do once, because now they're going to be on your service plan.
Right. Okay. That's good. Marvin, how about you? As far as your customers, I mean, obviously you're doing more the networking side and developing a plan for them to have this business continuity and all these different buzzwords and things that you hear out there. But are you constantly trying to upsell them to get them better protected, or how do you look at that?
Well, it's pretty similar, because when you first engage a customer, the question is how much do you throw at them with what you can do for them? And if it's a customer where I'm just going in to fix something, it's just a matter of, leaving the power of suggestion with them. Hey, if you ever need anything else, let us know, and just tell them briefly, yeah, we handle network administration on a regular basis. We can remote, all the same things that everybody else does. Usually it's more if you notice a customer having an issue, for, specific, like a backup issue where, they tell you, yeah, we have a backup, but we don't know if it's working or not. Well, the upsell for me would be to move them over to a managed backup where not only will they get, the automatic emails, but with the Datto product that I partnered with, if you're doing the imaging, they can get an actual email with a screenshot of their server booting up to the login screen, showing them that, see, your system is backed up and good to go there. So it's all the same thing. It's just, wherever your niche is, finding those opportunities to do the upsell.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things I was looking around trying to talk about or look at this particular subject. Basically, I ran across an article from our friends over at Ninja MSP, and on our on the LinkedIn channel, and I basically was looking at one of the articles that they had highlighted, and I was looking at the title and just thought it was interesting. And the article was actually written originally in 2015, but it was just updated in 2016, and it says, "Always be closing is dead. How to always be helping in 2016." So I think a lot of times when we talk about this upsell or selling in itself, we really look at it and we go, ooh, I just kind of threw up in my mouth. That makes me nauseous. I don't want to do that, and I don't want to be scummy or do anything that's going to hurt my reputation. And the reality is, a lot of times, what we're really trying to do, so don't look at it as selling, look at it as what are we doing to help our customer? How can we help them so that they are protected not only from themselves, but from things that are on the internet and out in the real world? And that's really what we've got to get to that point. And I think a lot of times is, a lot of people will look at, hey, I've got to have this company spend literally thousands of dollars right now in order to get up to my standards. But kind of look at these things and go over a long haul. So you figure out within the next year, how do I tell this customer, okay, this month we're going to do this, and then so on and so forth for the rest of the year. Every month we're going to pick a project and do something and put that together, right? And help them to be able to solve all these problems eventually. So maybe it's not an overnight thing, but this does a couple things, I think. Number one, it helps the customer kind of ease into it a little bit, and it also helps the customer to where they're able to know that they've got X amount of money coming out on a monthly basis, and they kind of get used to that whole process. Okay, it's not as hurtful. Or what happens a lot of times, Marvin, and you probably know, I know you've talked about this, where a business never puts, or seems to never put money aside for any type of IT support. They just kind of go, hey, when they absolutely need it, then it's like, oh my gosh, and all of a sudden it's thousands of dollars, but they don't really build a budget for it, right?
Right, businesses all the time are like that, and it's always that, they just hate to hear the big number. You've got to spend, $8,000 for a server for this upgrade. But in the meantime, you just had to hit them last week for, $1,500 to do something else, and so the only thing I do is with those customers is, you just got to keep hammering them, and maybe it's a little thing where, it's a report every quarter that just keeps putting it in their frame of mind. This is coming up, you got to do it. This is coming up, you got to do it. This is coming up, you got to do it. This is coming, and they're like, okay, alrighty, do it. So,
no, that's good. It's setting the customer up so that we're really just trying to protect them from themselves, right? And that's really the bottom line. So, we've got to get out of this mindset of we're actually trying to help the customer, which is what we're really trying to do, and we're not just trying to sell to them to make a dollar bill. We're not trying to close that next deal. You know, one of the things, I don't know if you guys have ever ran into this, but one of the things I can't stand is companies that cold call me and want to sell me products for my business. It's like, here's the reality, okay? And I know this is not how business works. If I wanted your help, I would have contacted you. If I wanted to know about your product or service, I would have researched it, I would have contacted you, you could have gotten me the information. If I'm not looking for your particular product or service, the first thing that happens in my mind when somebody contacts me is it's like, yeah, I'll probably never use your product or service. It just gives me a bad taste in my mouth. I think a lot of people are like that. So we really need to come up with a way that you can, you know, obviously a lot of us, our customers are calling us, right? And they want our help. So we need to be able to help them. And the only way we can help them is by knowing what their pain points are. What things on a day-to-day basis are happening where they need those things fixed. And then we've got to make a plan to be able to help them with those particular situations. You know? So.
Well, it's not even just a plan to be ready. A lot of it is just to be ready when something comes up. I mean, how many times do we walk into a situation where, you know, Chris dealing with the CryptoLocker virus, and the person's, do you have a good solid backup? Because this could happen again. Yeah. And have that solution in hand, ready to go, so that you can just tell them, look, I can have this up and running for you by tomorrow, and then you'll be covered going forward. I have stuff all the time where I have customers that their bandwidth is going berserk, and they can't understand why they're always slowing their internet or all of this stuff. And one of the things that I can tell them is, look, let's move you over to this router, and I've got a management solution that I can at any point go into your router and tell you what bandwidth is being used and by which station. And I have that ready to go, and a lot of times it's just being ready. And when a customer gets to the point where they know they got to do it, it's different than a cold call where you're calling them and saying, hey, are you interested in this? It's at that point they're communicating a need. You have a solution, and the two,
right.
If you meet them at the right time, you can get that.
Right.
And that is an unfortunate part of our industry, and it's not to say that I can't believe I'm missing out on this sale just because it hasn't broken yet. That's not my concern. I can make the sale when the sale needs to happen. My concern is that I can't get that backup into that customer's home because they haven't experienced the loss yet, and so they don't understand the value of it. And that's where I think we wind up with not a shortcoming because of us, but a shortcoming because people don't understand that for the most part. And when I say this, I'm really saying,
halfway through a thought again.
Ernest, what about you? What are some of the other things that you look for? I don't really know your business that well, but do you deal with? Obviously, you're dealing with zoos, so you're dealing with businesses. Are you dealing with other customer, residentials, or is it kind of a mixture?
A lot of businesses and a lot of residential. I mean,
okay.
And most of the residential around here is going to be like, kind of elderly, not computer savvy at all. So, I mean, I'd say about 80% of my phone calls consist of no, you searched for for it, and you can actually type in the address, and then nope, you searched for it again. Type in the address. Trying to get them to get to my download link so I can remote with them. So it is aggravating, and it takes a lot of patience, which I don't have a lot of days. But I always tell people that come in the store, I'm not a salesman. So don't expect me to try to put you in something. If you need something, I'm more than willing to help you, but I'm not a salesman.
Right.
Everybody hates salesmen.
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's phone salesman or car salesman, everybody hates them.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, you definitely, again, it's you want to help the customer out the best way possible. And the other thing too is, yeah, I've looked at this before and I said, okay, as far as the upsells and different things go, you have a problem with a certain group of people not being able to get to the download link on your website. And a lot of times, I bring in machines and I'll work on them, replace hard drives, whatever, get everything back up and running. And then there's always in the back of my mind, I'm always going, I could just download my software on here in case they have run into any problems. So that way I'm not having to take them through the whole process. But when you're doing that initial remote access, it's a tough thing, even for people my age, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people my age that are just.
I've actually gotten to the point where if they've come in more than once, I always put, my team viewer host on everybody's computer that comes in, more than once, because they will end up calling me and needing help installing a printer or something like that, and it's
Right.
so much easier to just log in and do it. Help them out, spend 4 or 5 minutes helping them out for free, rather than them having to bring it all the way in, and bring their printer in and take up so much of my time that I'm not getting anything done.
Right.
So I always let them know, because I'd say 99.9% of the time people don't care. But I just let them know, hey, I did install some software on there, so if you need help, just give me a call and I can help you out. And usually everybody's tickled pink that I did that for them.
Right. Yeah. So I guess going back into, you're basically looking for problems to solve for your customers, and you need to kind of understand, and Marvin, maybe you can talk about this, where a certain customer is in their process, in their thinking process of where they actually need to be, or where you want them to be, and where they actually think they need to be. Because a lot of these companies are like, well, yeah, I need a backup, but the backup I'm using seems to be working fine, but nobody's checking that backup. So when you run into a problem, then what do they do?
Well, call us.
But at that point, a lot of times, because it wasn't being checked, maybe there is no good backup.
Right, and that's where we've got to bridge the gap in what Johnny Ponytail does as opposed to us. Because for businesses, it's easy, I think, in a sense, to give them the comfort level of saying, okay, yeah, just because you have it doesn't mean that it's working, and
Right.
that has to be checked. The downside is we live in a society now where everybody thinks that they can just check it themselves. Oh, well, yeah, just have the email come to me and I'll review it and I'll check it. But then all of a sudden you realize that they haven't, they just get used to seeing the email and they never actually open it up to see if it says pass or fail.
Yeah.
So the problem is for us is to let them know that, look, we've got something that's a little bit more than that. That it's not just an email saying pass or fail, it's actually an alerting system that's going to email me special to say, hey, this backup failed. And that sort of a thing. So it almost is in a sense where you have to, at least from my perspective, when I'm going in to look at businesses, I go in with an overall concept of how I would like most businesses to run, and I kind of have a framework, knowing that is going to change per business. Not every business can utilize every single feature the exact same way. So having different options. So the different options we have from backups, you've got people that can use a NAS with a internal cloud backup. You have people that will use a Carbonite hybrid feature where you can do an image and then a cloud backup with a local option, or you can do a Datto that has the full virtualization built in for those types of customers, and then you just have that range available for them. But in terms of getting the overall concept, sometimes that takes a while, and it takes that partnership with the customer to know where is it that they want to go and what is their comfort level in getting there. So, you may have a customer that says, well, I want to be fully protected and I want this, but then you find out they only want to spend about $50 a month. And you have to, bridge that gap and say, Yeah, well, that's probably going to get you a little bit of protection.
Right.
And it's a partnership. I'm going through that with a couple of customers where, they're coming back to my business and they want all of these things, and they're realizing, I mean, they know they have to pay more than what they were paying before, but it's that whole level of they don't want it to be that much more.
Right.
And I'm kind of massaging them to say, look, I can't really support you any better than what you had before unless you're willing to spend this much more as a minimum.
Yeah.
And I've got that range where this is the absolute minimum you need to be. This is where I want you to be, and we can work in between, but I can't work down here. And we have to be able to set that bar and say, this is the absolute level that I can support you and be comfortable with knowing that we're all good. And
Right.
Okay, I got one for you, Marvin. I had a church who asked me to check their backups, and I asked what they were doing, and she brought me a CD rewritable disc that had dates written on it, and it was about 3 years worth of dates that she had written on it, and she said it wasn't wanting to work anymore, so she wanted one CDRW disc so she could use it for a couple more years.
Yeah.
And this was
Okay,
a very
so-
large church. This was a very large Catholic church in town here, and I told them they probably should look at a different backup solution.
I'd have sold him a whole spindle of disc. This will protect you.
Well, okay, show of hands. Okay, who here checks their backups personally for their own stuff on a weekly basis?
Oh, weekly? Sorry, I should probably put my hand back down because I check it once a day.
Okay, I wish I had that type of time. I don't. That's why I have quadruple.
But it's on a dashboard.
Yeah, that's why I have quadruple backup. You're different though, Chris, because you already had that set up in place. What I'm talking about is people that are using normal means of backing their stuff up. How many are really actually checking it on a regular basis? I don't check mine on it. I might check mine once a month, go in and see if the file's there. But again, I also do a quadruple backup, so I'm not really concerned about losing any two things. I'll still have my stuff. So it's not a huge. But the reality is, people get busy, life happens, and the reality is most people do not go in and check their backups. Like even Marvin was saying, even getting an email, opening it up to say, hey, it was passed or failed. They don't even do that.
Yeah.
Marvin, what were you going to say? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the email alone doesn't do it, and we fall into the same trap. I mean, I probably get 20 emails a night for all my customer backups, and I have a system where I can go through and quickly go through them and get oh, what was that, and go back and check it. But it took me having to set up the multiple alerts. So if I knew that I got one failure, I wasn't going to panic. But if I got two in a row, I better take a look at that. And sometimes it's doing those extra steps to just simply hit that snooze button, so that if you don't take care of it, it keeps reminding you.
Yeah.
Now here's the other thing too. Okay, show of hands. How many people are actually going into their backups to make sure that the files that they're actually backing up are actually the ones that are there?
I don't have to worry about that. I've got a customer that literally goes into their backup every day because somebody moved a folder.
That's awesome.
So, that customer, they're backed up, I know. In fact, they have multiple backups because the folder's been in 3 places in the last 3 days.
Oh my gosh. Well, and that's the whole thing. And I've said that. I've got probably almost 2 terabytes worth of data that's being backed up. And because it's being backed up, I can't go through every file. I'm hoping that the systems I have in place are actually backing my stuff up, and it's actually, when I need it, it's going to be there. Because the reality is, a yes or no, a green or red, is not necessarily going to tell me the whole story all the time. Yeah, I could be backing up corrupted files. That doesn't help me out a whole lot.
Well, that's always the rub. And obviously the best way to test a backup is to have to restore.
Right.
And the best way to do that for some of my businesses is to literally shut down a server and see if I can pull stuff from the backup onto another server. I've only got one customer that is allowing me to do that on an annual basis, where I can go in. Now, granted, I have to do it on the weekend when they're not in production, Saturday afternoon, shut down everything, bring up the backup server, see if I can restore, so that I can give them a report the next, business day to say, okay, we're good, the backup's still working. Nobody else wants to do that. Nobody wants to pay for that service, because that's time and money and resources. So, whatever things we can have in place that will work to show that, whether it's backup, whether it's, router, the router goes down, what do you do?
Right.
What disaster recovery do you have in that scenario?
Well, and that brings up a good point when you're talking about upselling or taking care of the customer and getting them what they need. So is there anybody that's looking at their customer's server and saying, okay, the lifespan of this server is way overdue and we need to replace this? And I know from my own experience there's a lot of pushback on that. Well, it's working now. Why do we need to replace it? And is there any good answer for that?
It's not necessarily a server in general, but I do that a lot for hard drives. You look at the average life of a hard drive, and if it's approaching that, just replace it.
Right.
Just clone it and replace it. It's so much easier than dealing with a bad hard drive in the middle of a workday.
That's a good point. Again, it's an added cost, but yeah, maybe that's something that we all should be doing a little bit more. The
cost of a hard drive is next to nothing compared to the cost of, trying to restore an entire server, middle of a workday.
Right. That's true.
Here's the best way I've been able to describe that. You're driving your car down the highway, and then you pull into your mechanic, and he says, your tires are looking a little worn. You should probably get those replaced. Well, they work just fine. Do you want to spend the money now to replace your tires, or do you want to risk a tire blowout on the highway in the middle of the day when you're trying to get someplace? And that's been the best scenario that I've been able to give people, to say, you have to do maintenance on your vehicle on a regular basis, oil change, tire change, check the transmission. People have no problem doing that sort of stuff. They have no problem paying for home warranty on repairs on appliances, because you got to have that microwave, got to have my food ready, But yet the one thing in your life, at least for businesses, that is making you money, just as much as any piece of machinery in the shop, just as much as any software you can sell or any food you can sell at the grocery, that computer is important. So why can't people set aside money to take care of that on a regular basis, as opposed to all the other stuff that they do in the world?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
You pay insurance. You pay insurance for your car, and how much of that is actually being used on a regular basis?
Hopefully,
Marvin, if you can find an actual answer to that question, I would love, because you're right.
The insurance question.
No, any of them, really. Like, okay, first off, we all know that insurance companies make a killing because nobody ever has insurance claims when you take everybody and put them all together. But really, that is the question. Why won't people spend money or even put money aside to make sure that their IT needs are met in their workplace?
Hey, Chris, the longer you talk, the more you go into no man's land. And there's a huge feedback right now. Somebody playing.
Whose doorbell's ringing?
Sorry, that's me.
There goes Chris again.
And there he goes.
Yeah.
So I guess what he was trying to say is, that is the thing. Everybody's used to taking care of everything else in their life, but not their computers.
Right.
they'll spend $300 a year to, get their latest phone or game box or whatever. It's a battle.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Oh. Well, Ernest, you got anything else to add as far as being able to take care of your customer in a way that's not that's to their betterment, not necessarily their detriment?
I see a lot of repair shops that they're like, oh, you'll get it back in 2 weeks. Who can survive without their computer for 2 weeks? I mean, you're doing something wrong if you can't get their computer back to them in the matter of a couple days.
Right.
Somebody could survive without their computer for a couple days, but if you're realistically telling people, you got about a 2-week lead time to get your computer back, nobody can survive without a computer for 2 weeks. So I see a lot of shops doing that. I mean, figure out a way to be able to, improve yourself to be able to get stuff back in a couple days. I always tell people 24 to 48 hours. For a full cleanup, it shouldn't take any longer than that. The longest part about anything is going to be doing updates. If it's sitting there doing updates by itself, that's the most time-consuming thing. Figure out a way around it. But
now, obviously, that's
a week even is just ridiculous.
Now that you're talking about for virus removals and cleanups and stuff like that, software issues, you're not talking about if you have to order parts or anything like that.
If it's something like, the worst is like an HP laptop where, there's 1,000 different models and you've got to order the part. There is no part, that you can just keep around. So stuff like that, obviously. But figure out a place where you can get it shipped next day air for $5.
Right.
There's all kinds of places. If you need a screen, you can get it shipped 2-day air for for extra $5. Or most parts. I mean, I think most of us keep a lot of parts around, hard drives and stuff like that. I mean, there's no reason to not keep those parts around. We're going to use them eventually.
Yeah, I just think about things like power jacks and stuff like that. I don't keep that stuff in stock. It's just not worth it. So yeah, I can usually get it within a few days. I would say 3, even if I'm expediting it, because again, a lot of times where you're getting these parts from, they're basically by the time they ship it out, it could be a day by the time you bought it, depending on the time of day, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, for that stuff, I tell people, what I always tell people is, yeah, it'll be about 5 days to get the part, and then we'll get it put back together and get it back to you. And because I do that, I usually get it done in 3 to 4, and I go, hey, it's all done. They're like, wow, really?
Right. Always give them more than what they were expected or told.
Exactly.
So if you tell them it's going to be $200, give it to them for $195, and they're going to be your customer for life.
There you go. That's good. Good tips right there. Marvin, anything else you want to talk about as far as taking advantage of your customer? I mean, upselling to your customer?
Always be closing. A, B, C. A, always. B, B, C, closing. Coffee is for losers.
Oh, yeah. I think there's a lot of good information here as far as how to, best take care of your customer. But I really think that's what it comes down to: taking care of your customer, not worry about just making another dollar. But I like what Ernest said. You want to make that customer your customer for life, and by doing little things, they will be your customer for life because you took care of them in a way that they feel good with, and the next time they have a problem, they bring you their computer, and it's not a big deal. They'll pay whatever. They're not sitting there worried about how much it's going to cost me and this, that, and the other. So, but anyways, all right. So Ernest, this has been an interesting show with a lot of weird things going on.
Yeah.
Still technical difficulties. But anyways, if people want to find out more about what you're up to and maybe ask you a question or something, what's the best place to do that?
Anybody's got any questions, just email me at nlucomputers@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you coming out and sharing with us today.
Easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay, great. Very good. And Mr. Marvin, where can people find you?
Before I sign off, I do want to say, on coming up to the point where we talked about customer for life, there is a book out there by Carl Sewell called Customers for Life. And basically, it's a business game plan on all the things that you can do in your business to turn that one-time customer into a lifelong sale.
Gotcha.
It's a book
Another excellent book.
I
Is that
think
an
I've
old
had
one
this-
too?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've had this for like 19 years.
All right.
Hey, put that in the show notes, would you?
Yeah.
I'll find it and do that.
All right. Very good. All right. Mark your calendars. Toronto Unconvention, July 22nd through the 24th, 2016, in Toronto, Canada. If you guys could do me a favor, go over to TechNibble, and I'm going to put a link in the show notes, and take the Unconvention 2016 survey. We just want to know what it is you are looking for, what type of information you're looking for to help you in your business. And I'll tell you, come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/live. Join in on the conversation by calling in live and hanging out in the chat room. We have audio available over at podnutz.com, or subscribe using your favorite podcatcher. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Computer Repair Podcast. Send your questions and feedback to podnutz@podnutz.com. Or you can leave a voicemail at 1-888-697-0162. And I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for supporting this show. Really appreciate it. You guys can support this show by going to patreon.com/Computer Repair Podcast. And I want to thank everyone for listening, subscribe to the show. We'll see you next time on Podnutz, the Computer Repair Podcast.